When I look at these statues, among other things, I'm always looking for some kind of hint of the facial expression. This just looks like focused contemplation. But notice the snake necklace. And notice the detail of hairstyle, the two little ringlets hanging down. Here what we're focused on is the fact that the writing goes from top to bottom, but then migrates to the right. So this would have been, again, probably in the 3rd and 4th century BC, but it indicates the continuing exploration of methods of writing, styles of writing. We presume that writing goes from left to right horizontally, unless you're in the Orient when it goes the reverse, but not always the case. These are more little gewgaws, including this little statuette and these little votive heads that were found in connection with the excavation of a 3rd or 4th BC temple. What to me is fascinating is that each of these things, some perhaps more than others, had a particular either fascination or affection lavished on them by someone, a human being like me. What to me is fascinating is that each of these things, some perhaps more than others, had a particular either fascination or affection lavished on them by someone, a human being like me. I think it's in places like this that you get a sense of the intense part of a human life devoted to and preoccupied by religion in antiquity. And this has occurred, of course, at different times, Dark Ages, and probably for different reasons. Now I would say religion, at least in the Western world, it is a low ebb, but it will come back in some form, virulent, benign, or helpful. This is a somewhat ostentatious, by its size alone, funerary relief of a freed man, someone who had been a slave but had attained freedom, and his wife, and is apparently evidenced by the clothes they're wearing. It gives us some hint as to the cultural forces at the time. This little device, and you can see the hole in the top, would have been attached to the top of a closed bag of coins, indicating its quality and integrity. This section is an interesting insight into Rome of 135 to 71 BC, and that is for slaves' burial. Because of the incredible number of slaves that Rome had acquired. Remember, with the taking of Israel, there were 50,000 Jews alone as slaves brought to Rome. They were incredibly numerous in households that could afford them, doing anything from the important, like midwifery, to the derisive. Anyway, places were established for their burial. But here a comment by Plautus, who was a comedian, at least. The singers were all of slave status and had a dubious reputation due to the uncertain distinction between singers, actress, and prostitute. They would have been used in private during banquets together with performances of music and dance. Remember that Rome was built on slaves' labor, whereas First World, 21st century, is built on technology, including heavy, powerful machinery. It notes here that inscriptions, funeral inscriptions for craftsmen, included not only what they did, but also the location of their doing it. This man's shop was on the Via Sacra, one of the ancient sacred Rome, not sacred, but ancient roads that ran through the Forum. This is a relief of a freed man and his wife, a funerary relief, and also their son. The fourth person is unknown, but it's thought that This expresses the pride that the freed man and woman had in their free-born son. Here's something I can identify. This is a lead curse tablet in which the god of the underworld, Dispater, Pluto, is invoked in order to put an end to the love between Rodin and Faustus. Quote, just as the corpse buried here can neither speak nor converse, so let Rodin be dead for Marcus Licinius Faustus. One of the strategies I used in my life to remove or reduce the grief over a woman I had lost was to presume that she was dead and could no longer be retrieved, even if she and I wanted to. This is a comment by a man for his daughter who died. All the beauty of her face and her highly praised figure are now no more than a soft shadow, and her bones a few ashes. This small section of the museum is describing a sacred area in the forum near the Arch of Constantine that is about 20 feet below current grade. This small section refers to a cult that was generated by Augustus, if you will, to venerate and raise him to a level of superior to men and comparable to a god. It's interesting that even these powerful emperors were not quite able to raise themselves to the level of a pharaoh who was a god. This is a pedal that's dedicated to Marcus Aurelius, but the name Caesar is used to indicate that he will be the next emperor. So the word Caesar, apparently after the time of Julius Caesar, was more than a reference to Julius, but a name, if you will, of the emperor. A wall of fragments of large inscriptions done on relatively thin pieces of marble commemorating whatever. What it does remind me of, particularly when I look at something like this, because I remember seeing that kind of font, if you will, on Independence Rock in Wyoming, where the wagon trains going west would stop. And I remember that there were a few that were carved as elegantly as this is, while others, that didn't remain even when I was there, of course, had just been slopped on with grease from an animal. The items in this long display case are not defined here, so I'll take a shot at them as I go down through it. This is a seal because not only can you almost inherently sense that the letters are mirror image, but there's a ring underneath which would have been worn by somebody. This looks like it might have been a tag that was attached to something, perhaps a product when it was sold. Tubular things look like forms of pipe, lead pipe. Whether these carried sewage or just water, I don't know. Again, these appear to be in a bas-relief, so it's possible they were used as seals. Certainly the hole suggests that this was attached to something. Another little figurine. Notice the attempt to define the hairstyle. Is that like curls or something? Notice how this one appears to be almost brand new. Now this looks similar to one I just saw, so it's possible that what this is a block of like cement in which a seal had been pushed to commemorate something, like maybe a brick manufacturer did this every once in a while. If this is a lead pipe, perhaps this is a description of its character or use or location or manufacture, maybe similar to the writings we see on Romex wiring. Little lamps here. One here to be hung by a chain. I don't know what these ovals were. Maybe these are mortars. Certainly scales, of course. And these may have been used as weights for scales. Same with this. Imagine the business that this did transact and could describe. Probably just various weights used, counterweights on scales. Here a small and delicate scale. More plaques, usually funeral related, and these are related to freed men and women.